This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
We have been in this COVID for 2 years. I think it's important to tell the population that it's still in our power to control that. It is in our power. I don't like the situation in our health system this summer. Remember, weeks ago I said this is going to be a difficult summer. We're lacking personnel, but I thought it was, and I repeat, was important to provide those people with their holidays. So we're asking people to make sure, Quebecers, to make sure that we respect the measures. That's the situation. We have to live with it now. But let's be prudent. Let's be vigilant.
That is our Health Minister, Christian Dubé, at the presser earlier today. He was accompanied by Public Health Director Dr. Luc Boileau. And we are joined now by James MENNIE of the Montreal Gazette. So it's official, Jim. We are in a seventh wave. And I'm curious, we talked about this earlier on the show today, but I certainly came away from the impression, I got the impression from that press conference today that we're to blame. It's your fault, Jim, and my fault that we blew it. We didn't follow the protocol. The government's been doing a great job.
Well, no, I mean, here's the thing. I always get a little leery when a press conference begins with the health minister saying, well, we don't really have anything major to announce.
Yeah, great, thanks.
But why are you holding this at all? As we just heard in the clip we played, we have Christian Dubé saying, it's going to be a tough summer. We're lacking staff. And remember, not that long ago when we had mask mandates and vaccine passports, the idea behind all of that wasn't so much to contain the spread of the virus, although that was a part of it. It was also to create this kind of buffer between the spit and bubblegum held together healthcare network and a potential flood of COVID cases, which would basically have caused the whole thing to collapse. We are in not the same situation, but a similar situation. It's summer. As anybody in Quebec who has ever had to deal with the healthcare system in summer knows, there are always staff shortages. And for Mr. Dubé to turn around and say, well, these people have to have their vacations. Of course they do. But somewhere in there's got to be a tipping point. Somewhere in there has to be a switch. They're going to have to be ready to push to say, listen, we'd like you to wear a mask. No, actually, you know what? Let's go back to the masks indoors, okay? Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people could deal with. I'm sorry, and I go inside to a lot of places now. In my estimate, maybe 25% of people are still wearing masks. And they all, to me, don't look like people at risk. I think there are people who are being very prudent, as the minister asked us or told us to do. But all that said, I think the real fear here is that if these cases continue to go up, when do they flip the switch? Mm-hmm. When do they say, "Oh my God, we're getting close to the healthcare systems really being crippled by this caseload"? And of course, whereas they wouldn't have hesitated a year ago or even 6 months ago, well, not to put too fine a point on it, we are as we speak a total of
weeks.
3 months away from election.
We're in weeks now. Yeah, we can count it in weeks.
You can count it in weeks. And if there's one thing, and remember when I was talking to you and Aaron last week, we had that great clip from Dr. Boileau. He was asked point blank, well, would you go back to the mandates and the protocols? Mm-hmm. And remember the first words out of his mouth? Well, the polls say, the surveys say.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That frightens me a hell of a lot more than COVID-19, okay? Yeah. When we have the chief public health officer saying, well, we're looking at the surveys here and it doesn't look like a smart thing to do. Well, sometimes, you actually have to do things that are unpopular. I know this is a populist government, but the fact of the matter is, your stated priority, and the stated priority of every premier I've ever covered, is that the safety and security of Quebecers is my number one duty. And it seems to me that perhaps that duty is not being embraced as as closely as it should be. It seems to me that right now we've got people traveling around the world, and justifiably so, because they're allowed, because these restrictions have been lifted. But it seems to me that right now they, honest to God, don't know what next week or next month will bring.
Agreed.
And neither do we. And this is where things get crazy. Can you imagine all the millions of dollars that have been put into reopening and, wide open reopening on the basis of the government giving the green light to this, and then to turn around and hit the yellow light, or God help us, the red light? This has a potential for disaster. And it's not my fault, and it's not the public's fault. It's the fault of politicians who don't want to make those tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, if they do, we're all going to have to pay the price as well. I've said repeatedly on this show, I loathe wearing a mask, but I know I have to. I loathe the idea of going back to confinement, of going back to lockdowns. But you know what? As long as there seems to be this, it sounds like a contradiction in terms, but this kind of a concerned insouciance about what might happen, I think, if we hit a wall, to borrow a phrase often used by the Premier of Quebec, if we hit a wall on this time we're going to hit it very, very hard.
Yeah, and I can't help but wonder, this idea of trying to hold us accountable rather than taking responsibility themselves, if indeed they are forced to have to roll things back before the election, will it hurt them? Will it hit them where it hurts?
It will absolutely, if only because, to a certain extent, listen, I'm not saying Dr. Boileau was wrong to tell the truth and say we're looking at polls here, and I think that's exactly how the public feels. I know that's how I feel, that I will be bloody angry if we have to go back to square one because some politicians were too worried about turning around and saying, take the cod liver oil now and let's get this over with. Let's try and stomp this up. In the past 2 years, and despite all those efforts, the efforts were always piecemeal. And that's what really bugged people.
Yep,
and they were
agreed.
Incoherent. Whether it was curfews or whether it was shutdowns. Oh, we're going to reopen it. Yes, this can stay open, but this can't. And it became so mind-numbingly confusing that at this point, I warned about this repeatedly on the show, you are going to have people who would otherwise have said, okay, I'll do what I have to do, who are saying, this is white noise to me.
Yeah.
I don't believe what you're saying. I don't think you know what you're talking about. And I'm not going to turn my life upside down for a third time because all of a sudden you guys are hitting the panic button. So we have a real recipe here for what could potentially be a disaster. I'm sorry, but this is it. These guys don't know. They're flying blind, so are we. And all we know is what we were told we were allowed to do.
Yay. Let's squeeze in 60 seconds quickly. So we know they don't want the pandemic to be an election issue, but the environment might actually be an election issue now?
Well, listen, between what's happening up in Rwanda with the arsenic content in the air there, because our friend Dr. Boileau mentioned that, in terms of dealing with the level of arsenic content, that foundry provides 650 jobs. It would be a matter of public societal acceptance, social acceptance for whatever that level in the foundry is going to be. In other words, people living around there would have to have their say in it as well, which made a lot of people in Quebec City rather angry because nobody said anything about social acceptance when the same government, when the Legault government decided to increase the level of nickel in the air, and this has become quite problematic in certain neighborhoods of Quebec City.
Yeah,
yes, and by the way, the infamous cement plant in Port Daniel, which is under new ownership, which the PQ and Liberal governments put tens of millions of dollars into. It's been sent a very stern note from Benoit Charette, the environment minister, because you're putting all kinds of dust in the air. Apparently, there was one hot, sticky day, the entire town was covered like in a coat of dust, but he's just hopping up and down, but nobody's doing anything about it. And just for the icing on the cake, the manager of the foundry up in Rwanda said today, or I believe it was today, told Radio Canada, in order to try and get these numbers down, it would take a $500 million retrofit of the foundry, and we'd need financial help with that, even though this is a company that apparently makes billions of dollars a year. And the Premier, Legault, this afternoon apparently said, those are good-paying jobs, and they do create tax revenue, so we'd be ready to pay for a bit of it. This is where we are in the environment.
definitely going to
tails
be
wagging the dog.
Yep.
Again.
I mean, what else is new, right? But this is definitely going to be an election issue. All right, Jim, thank you so much. I'm off. I start my vacation tomorrow. I hope you have. Do you have some time off coming up?
Oh, I never take time off. Does that mean that my buddy David Hertel is going to be in
David
tomorrow?
Hertel's in as of tomorrow.
Oh, boy. Listeners, buckle up.
I can't wait. Thanks, Jim. You take care.
You too. Have a great vacation.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. That's James MENNIE over at the Montreal Gazette.